Hi friends, how are you today? Hope you're good. Thank you for joining me once again. This is KG and you are watching KG's Corner. Well, today I just woke up thinking, there's um, a discussion happening out there about interracial relationships and how the positives and the negatives of being in an interracial relationship. And I just thought to just unpack to just have a conversation around interrelationships, not necessarily interracial, but intercultural relationship, inter-tribal relationships, because those are the relationships that I'm familiar with. I've been in interracial relationships, I've been in intercultural relationships, and I've been in intertribal relationships. So what the triggers that come from that, the pros and the cons that actually are interlaced in within relationships of that kind. And well, my point of departure, basically, I just want to voice that is we are all human beings, we are all created equal. Race is a social construct that, this is my personal opinion, that was actually formulated to better manage races. If you dig deep and if you really do research on racism was actually created so that through division, rule can actually happen smoothly. And also tribalism, I would say, is also a construct that was also created to divide and sort of in order to rule. Also with the third, intercultural, the same. All these labels were given to us so that we can actually be better managed. Now, when we understand this, surely our thinking and our ways of doing should actually be indicative of our understanding of these constructs. Well, from my personal take, I would say that it is actually quite difficult to maneuver to actually navigate the playing field, which is just relationships, um, either relationships based on race, tribalism, or cultural differences, because not everyone has the same understanding as to why these constructs were created, and then be able to reference themselves against these very solid constructs. It's not easy. Even like in interracial relationships, it's, I would say, out of the three inters that I've mentioned, interracial relationships are the hardest to actually navigate. Why? Because the triggers that come from racial segregation, racial maybe segregation or difference based on race is very different. Is actually much deeper, based on the history that that kind of construct is riddled with. There's been so much struggle that has to do with racism, that, let's say, you are in an interracial relationship, and because racism is also married to ignorance. If one pushes themselves into, or immerses themselves, or pushes through using their race as a way, that can actually be very triggering to the other person. So using maybe, let's say, black and white, because that's the most that has been the most used racial conflict, racial construct to divide and rule. So let's say you're married to I'm a black woman, I'm married to a white man, and my husband, maybe I'm making my African cuisine, and maybe the smell is different, or maybe the look is different, but the cuisine that I'm cooking has the most is most nutritious, is actually, I love it. And when you look at how it is made, there's so much nurture, and there's so much love around the dish, that when, let's say, your partner walks in and they see this dish that they are not familiar with, and they proceed to cuss it out, and maybe talk negatively about the smell and maybe the texture, obviously, because that's coming from ignorance and not understanding the various African cuisines or the various different cuisines out in the world. And maybe the way he says it, the look on the face, that would actually trigger one to react in a certain way. And calling that out, maybe calling the partner out from having reacted in a malicious, maybe malicious in the way that you've received it, and they are insisting on belittling, that I feel needs to be called out, needs to be discussed, because then if one does not raise that point immediately, then other things are bound to happen thereafter. So what I'm trying to say here is between the three inters, I have found that the interracial relationships call for one to be more intact with who they are, to understand exactly where they come from, and to own your culture without being, not your culture, but to own where you come from. Take away the titles of where you come from with dignity and respect, and be able to impart your not argument, or maybe your response with the respect that you were taught, and the respect that the respect that you have for yourself. So it's not only just about, I'm just using the dish as an example, because that can actually be very triggersome when a person disrespects your food. And then sometimes you will find that there will be various nuances that arise from a conversation that is actually maybe from the other partner or from yourself, that is based on ignorance, that is born of how the socialization of racism was woven within our society. So basically what I want to end off on with regards to interracial butting of emotions and heads, is it's very important for the one who has been given an inferiority card historically. That person should be very aware of who they are. I think as you enter into an interracial relationship, because it's very, very prevalent for for us to be ignorant of the other. So and we cannot say that personally I don't believe that one does not see, you know, when if someone says I don't see race, because I mean after 21, when you get a job, you get a job on the basis of filling out a form, and the form asks you what race you are, and you say you're white. You look at yourself in the mirror, you say you see you're brown, you see your hair is different. So I think that that's a dead argument to say that you don't see color. And we have been raised in a way that um, cements the foundation of a social construct that is that fundamentally will have us separate ourselves in terms of color. And I want us to, just so that we can be in real time with this, we saw how division can easily happen during when the pandemic happened and we were told to vaccinate. Those who are not vaccinated and those who are vaccinated would actually sit in different seats. Families were divided, etc., etc. So that is how everything starts. Like race, before we lived together and we coexisted, but because division had to happen in order to better manage the world population, then it was actually implemented.